Inside a ward at Dalrin City's top oncology hospital. The sharp bite of disinfectant, nurses' shoes squeaking down the corridor, the low moans of other patients, that was the air Ethan surfaced into as his eyes cracked open on the hospital bed. Weakness hit him all at once, flooding every inch of his body. Memories churned, tangled, refused to line up. It took a long moment before Ethan finally pieced together what had happened to him. There'd been a tumor growing inside his brain. 3 days ago, surgery. Something went wrong on the table and he dropped into a coma. Ethan lifted a hand and pressed his temple, slow and careful. The painkillers were wearing off. Right now it felt like someone was driving a power drill straight through his skull. The pain made his body shudder, but his face barely moved, as if he'd made peace with agony a long time ago. He eased his phone out and started scrolling fast through the feeds. Then he saw 2 words, Dawnfall Online, and his pupils tightened. Dawnfall Online was a line of translucent text that had appeared in front of every single person on Earth, exactly 1 week ago. He remembered the chaos it set off. Some called it a sign from God, others swore it was aliens, or beings from some higher dimension looking down on them. While everyone else panicked, Ethan, a man with a brain tumor, told he had less than a year left even after surgery, felt something different. Curiosity. Sharp and hungry. Unfortunately, from what he could piece together online, Dawnfall Online had gone live at the exact moment he was lying unconscious on the operating table. Other players had already been deep in the game for 3 days. Ethan was only now crawling out of a coma. Silently, he kept reading everything about Dawnfall Online. After the surgery, he had less than 5,000 yuan to his name. Rent, utilities, unpaid university tuition, insurance premiums, follow-up treatment, add it all up, and he needed around 50,000 yuan just to keep his life from collapsing. But he'd just come out of surgery. He couldn't even sit up properly. How was he supposed to walk out and earn anything? He'd been swallowing pain most people couldn't imagine, all to shave a little off the cost of painkillers. Ethan let out a soft breath and muttered. Being alive with no money feels just as suffocating as dying with cash you never spent. If I don't scrape something together soon, they'll throw me out of this hospital. Then a few trending topics on his screen caught his eye. Shocking. One insanely lucky player killed a monster in Dawnfall Online, dropped a blue quality intel, sold it for 100,000 yuan. Elite gamer logs 3 days in Dawnfall Online, comes away with one conclusion: the most important thing isn't weapons or gear, it's intel. Severe warning, do not leave safe zones without sufficient intel data. Hundreds have gone insane from the agony of death. Bounty. Lucas, Dalrin City's wealthiest man, is buying intel, any rare, high-quality intel paid for up front. Ethan clicked through every single topic tagged Dawnfall Online, and with each one, his eyes burned a little brighter. In his state, hunting for any normal job was pure fantasy. So why not Dawnfall Online? One lucky break, one piece of valuable intel, and every problem he had would disappear. Trouble was, everyone else had already been playing for 3 days, and word online said time inside Dawnfall Online runs at double speed. 1 day out here, 2 days in there. Do the math, logging in now meant he was 6 full days behind the rest of the world. Ethan wasn't losing sleep over it. He'd never touched a game he didn't end up mastering. So he shook off the doubt, lifted his hand, tapped his temple, shut his eyes, and did exactly what the forums said: let the mind go quiet. A heartbeat later, a few semi-transparent lines floated up in front of him. Dawnfall Online. Connecting. Welcome to Dawnfall Online. Please create your character. Same as those old face customization MMOs, pick your gender, sculpt your look. Ethan had zero interest in hiding. He wasn't famous, and apart from being ridiculously good-looking, he had nothing worth covering up. So he dialed the face down to something forgettable and dove straight in. A flash of white, and when Ethan opened his eyes, the whole world was white. Cold that cut to the bone, wind screaming past his ears, snowflakes pricking his skin like tiny needles. For a second he honestly couldn't tell whether he was inside Dawnfall Online or standing in some real frozen wasteland. It felt insanely real. He could actually feel the warmth bleeding out of his body. He looked down the broad, muscled frame of his, wearing exactly one thing: a pair of white underwear. That's it? Just underwear, he muttered before he could stop himself. Right then, a flash of white light popped beside him and out stepped a jaw-dropping woman in white lingerie. Scorching figure. E-cup, minimum. Ethan stole a couple of glances and murmured, "Okay, there are upsides to wearing less." But gorgeous neighbor aside, what really mattered was his next move. Everything he'd read online said the same thing: Dawnfall Online has no newbie tutorial. None. He dug through his memory for the player-made guides, lifted his right arm, and sure enough, there it was, a skin-toned wristwatch strapped to his wrist. One light tap, and a semi-transparent panel bloomed in front of him. Name, Windchaser. Talent, Pain Resistance, Blue. Level, LV0. Class, None. Status, Hypothermia. Equipment, cotton underwear, gray quality. HP, 99%. Strength, 7. Speed, 9. Defense, 4. Energy, 9. Charisma, 10. Luck, 1. He was still scanning his stats when the panel started to flicker like something invisible was clawing at it. Warning, data anomaly detected. Correcting. Unable to correct. Error. 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 Congratulations! You have obtained the unique hidden special talent, 10,000-fold intelligence reward. 10,000-fold intelligence reward, quality, unknown. Upon killing a monster for the first time, you are guaranteed to receive an intel reward. The stronger the monster, the greater the reward multiplier, and you will also obtain all information about the slain creature, including but not limited to its distribution, weaknesses, traits, preferences. Ethan stared at the 10,000-fold intelligence reward. And from everything he'd read, all the data, all the forum arguments, he knew exactly how talents in Dawnfall Online were ranked. Gray quality, white quality, green quality, blue quality, purple quality, orange quality, gold quality, dark gold quality, and red quality. And right now? Most players were stuck with green or blue talents. Nothing more. Purple or orange talents were almost mythical. Any player lucky enough to have one, even if they only let it slip in passing conversation, would be buried under guild invitations and instantly handed a core member slot. His own talent, Pain Resistance, was plain old blue. Same as the vast majority of ordinary players. Barely an edge at all. Pain Resistance, blue quality, increases the player's tolerance for pain, reducing its negative effects, keeping the mind calm, and preventing pain from interfering. But 10,000-fold intelligence reward? That thing was in a completely different league. Use it to slay monsters, rake in the matching intel rewards, and his power would go vertical, leaving every other player eating his dust in a single sweep. And that's before you remember that one single blue quality intel could sell for 100,000 yuan. Intel rewards held special classes, powerful equipment, rare items, and more. Ordinary players could grind monsters until their hands cramped and still have only a razor-thin chance of pulling any intel at all, and when it finally dropped, it was always the low-quality junk. But Ethan, with 10,000-fold intelligence reward? The first time he killed any given monster, an intel reward was guaranteed. Ordinary players simply couldn't compete. If word of this ever got out, the frenzy would be enormous. That scantily clad beauty who'd been standing beside him moments ago? She meant nothing to Ethan now. Compared to her, one thing mattered far more: build power fast, kill monsters, lock down those intel rewards. So without a shred of hesitation, Ethan strode toward a nearby dilapidated shack. According to the walkthroughs other players had posted, that was exactly where the weapon he needed was waiting. 3 minutes later, Ethan stepped back out of the rundown building, a rusty cleaver gripped in his hand. And now he was wearing a grimy down jacket, streaked with patches of dried blood. Tattered down jacket. Quality, gray. Equip requirements, none. Description: a thoroughly junky piece of clothing that offers no defensive value, but provides a slight boost to cold resistance to protect vital areas. The moment he pulled it on, Ethan's status shifted, the hypothermia condition vanished, and his HP climbed straight back to 100%. Which just proves it, having gear always beats walking in empty-handed. As for the rusty cleaver in his grip, his wristwatch pulled up the details on that too. Rusty cleaver. Quality, gray. Equip requirements, none. Description: a rusty cleaver. Using this butcher's knife to commit suicide would itself be a strenuous task, but a brave adventurer could try wielding it to slay their first monster. Ethan looked over his only 2 pieces of equipment, no, 3, counting the pair of gray-quality cotton underwear he still had on. And just like that, he actually had a bit of fight in him. Enough to take a swing at the monsters nearby. No hesitation. Ethan dug hard through his memory for every guide and data table he'd read online, then bolted out the door. 5 minutes later, a frost-caked building rose up ahead of him, currently the single best hunting ground for new players. But Ethan didn't charge in. He stopped. And he watched. Nothing stirred. Nothing moved. Ethan braced himself to make his move, and that's when a scream tore straight through the air. Help! Somebody save me! Can anyone save me? It hurts so much. I don't want to die. Ethan's brow creased at those agonized cries. He didn't charge in. He softened his steps until they made no sound at all, and crept toward the noise. Just around the corner up ahead, a blonde in white lingerie, clutching nothing but a rusty cleaver, was cornered by 3 monstrous things. Each was roughly the size of a man, but their faces crawled with blue tumors, weeping a thick, gluey blue fluid. Absolutely revolting. One look, and Ethan made his choice without a flicker of hesitation: back away, fast. He didn't just want to stay off the monster's radar, he didn't want the woman to spot him either. He wasn't stupid. He'd only just stepped into this game, and caution was everything, because death in Dawnfall Online came with a price you couldn't imagine. A level 0 newbie who dies gets kicked out of the game entirely, then has to sit in the real world for 10 hours before he's allowed back in. But as Ethan slipped backward, the woman under attack caught a glimpse of him. Her voice climbed into raw desperation. "Handsome guy, save me, please, help me." All she got in return was Ethan retreating even faster. Terror and despair curdled instantly into pure venom in her eyes, and she screamed. "Damn you! Why won't you come over? You could have pulled those things off me, one distraction, and I'd have gotten away. Damn it! Damn it!" Moments later, under the monster's relentless assault, her breathing thinned out to nothing. Her face drained to ash, her features twisted, and her body was slowly torn apart and devoured by the 3 creatures. Full at last, 2 of them ambled off into the building. The one left behind seemed stuffed to bursting. It flopped onto the ground, completely spent. Ethan's eyes sharpened. This was the kind of opening you don't get twice. Like a predator that's already picked its target, he waited with unnerving patience for the exact right heartbeat to strike. He closed the distance, fingers tightening around the rusty cleaver's handle. Then the sprawled monster twitched, it sensed something. It turned its head just in time to see Ethan bearing down on it. Their eyes locked. Ethan didn't flinch for a second, he lunged, swinging the rusty cleaver straight at the creature's neck. Shing! The blade sank deep, burying itself in the monster's throat. Blue sludge sprayed out as the thing let out an ear-splitting shriek. In the same breath, its jaws yawned wide and snapped shut on Ethan's shoulder. The pain of those teeth felt far too real, yet Ethan's face didn't change at all, calm as dead still water. His stare was colder than the blizzard howling around him, harsher than the wind chewing at his skin. The monster froze, dumbstruck. Ethan seized it. He balled his right fist and slammed it down on the back of the rusty cleaver. The blade was nowhere near sharp, but that punch drove it deeper into the creature's flesh anyway. The monster jerked back in agony, its jaws springing open on instinct. Ethan ripped the cleaver free, and a fountain of blue ichor burst from the wound. Before he could even glance at his own torn shoulder, a purple glow bloomed above the monster's corpse. The orb of light shot toward his wristwatch and disappeared inside it. When he opened his storage, a new icon sat there, shaped like a USB drive. Frost Warrior Clash Change Intel. Quality, purple. Requirement, talent affinity, must be ice-related. Description: near safe zone number 9527 lies a hidden location housing the Frost Warrior Clash Change trial. Players of level 10 or higher may attempt it. A special class? Ethan's breath caught. Almost nobody clawed their way to level 10. Dawnfall Online didn't play nice. Leveling was a grind from hell, and dying? Dying cut your level in half. Apart from a handful of hardcore veterans, nearly every player out there had eaten dirt at least once. And sure, there were the other kind too, so scared of death they flinched away from every risk. Any gamer will tell you what a special class is worth. Strong early gear carries you for a week, maybe two. A strong class? That rides with you for the long haul. No question about it, this time, Ethan was about to hit the jackpot. Staring at the 10,000-fold intelligence reward sitting in front of him, and going off the data and forum chatter he'd combed through, Ethan knew exactly how Dawnfall Online ranked talents. Gray, white, green, blue, purple, orange, gold, dark gold, and red. And right now? Most players were sitting on green or blue. Purple or orange talents were practically mythical. Let one slip in casual conversation and guild invites would flood in, with a core member slot waiting before you finished the sentence. His own talent, pain resistance, was plain old blue. Same as everyone else. No edge, no advantage. Pain resistance, blue quality increases the player's tolerance for pain, reducing its negative effects, keeping the mind calm, and preventing pain from interfering. But 10,000-fold intelligence reward? That thing was playing a completely different game. Slaughter monsters, collect the intel rewards that came with them, and his power would climb like a rocket, leaving every other player eating his dust. And that's before you remember a single blue quality intel could go for 100,000 yuan. Intel rewards held special classes, powerful gear, rare items, the works. Regular players could grind mobs until their hands cramped and still barely scrape an intel drop, and when it finally landed, it was always garbage tier. Ethan, though? With 10,000-fold intelligence reward, the first kill on any monster type meant a guaranteed intel reward. Every single time. Ordinary players weren't even in the same conversation. If this ever leaked, the whole server would lose its mind. That barely dressed beauty who'd been standing next to him a minute ago? Ethan couldn't have cared less now. Compared to her, one thing mattered more: get stronger, fast. Kill monsters. Lock down those intel rewards. Without a second's hesitation, Ethan made for a battered shack nearby. According to the walkthroughs other players had already posted, that was where he'd find the weapon he needed. 3 minutes later, he stepped back out of the ruined building with a rusty cleaver in hand. He was also wearing a filthy down jacket, streaked with patches of dried blood. Tattered down jacket. Quality, gray. Equip requirements, none. Description: a thoroughly junky piece of clothing that offers no defensive value, but provides a slight boost to cold resistance to protect vital areas. The moment the jacket went on, his status shifted, the hypothermia condition vanished, and his HP climbed right back to 100%. Just goes to show gear beats bare hands every single time. As for the rusty cleaver in his hand, his wristwatch spat out the details on that too. Rusty cleaver. Quality, gray. Equip requirements, none. Description: a rusty cleaver. Killing yourself with this butcher's knife would be hard work in itself, but a brave adventurer might try swinging it at their first monster. Ethan looked over his only 2 pieces of equipment, no, 3, counting the pair of gray quality cotton underwear he had on. For the first time, he actually had some fighting power. Enough, maybe, to take a swing at the monsters nearby. No hesitation. Ethan dragged up every guide and data dump he'd ever scrolled past online and bolted outside. 5 minutes later, a frost-caked building rose in front of him. Right now, the best hunting ground a new player could ask for. But Ethan didn't charge in. He stopped. He watched. Nothing moved, nothing stirred. He braced himself to go, and then a scream tore through the air. Help! Somebody save me! Can anyone save me? It's horrible, it hurts so much. I don't want to die. Those agonized cries made Ethan frown. He didn't run toward them. He softened his steps and crept toward the sound, inch by inch. Just around the corner up ahead, a blonde beauty in white lingerie, nothing but a rusty cleaver to her name, was pinned down by three monstrous things. Each about the size of a man, but their faces were smothered in blue tumors leaking a thick, syrupy blue fluid. Absolutely stomach-turning. Ethan took one look and didn't hesitate for a heartbeat. He started backing away, fast. He didn't want the monsters noticing him. He didn't want the woman noticing him either. He wasn't stupid. He just walked into this game. Caution came first, because death in Dawnfall Online carried a penalty you couldn't imagine. A level 0 newbie who dies gets kicked out of the game and has to wait 10 real-world hours before logging back in. But as Ethan retreated, the woman fighting for her life spotted him. Her voice cracked with desperation. "Handsome guy, save me, please, help me." All she got was Ethan retreating faster. Terror and despair curdled into pure venom in her eyes as she screamed. "Damn you! Why won't you come over? One hand from you and those monsters would have turned, and I could have run. Damn it! Damn it!" Not long after, under the monster's assault, her breathing thinned out and faded. Her face went ashen, her features twisted, and her body was slowly devoured by the three creatures. Fed and satisfied, two of the monsters strolled off into the building. The last one, stuffed to bursting, sprawled out on the ground, dead tired. Ethan's eyes lit up. That was a chance you don't get twice. Like a predator locked on prey, he waited, unervingly patient, for the exact right moment. As he closed the gap, his fingers tightened around the rusty cleaver. Then the sprawled-out monster twitched. It sensed something. It turned its head, just in time to see Ethan bearing down on it. Their eyes met. Ethan didn't flinch. He lunged, swinging the rusty cleaver straight at the creature's neck. Shing! The blade bit deep into flesh and stuck fast in its neck. Blue fluid burst out in a thick spray as the monster loosed an ear-splitting wail. In the same breath, its jaws yawned open and snapped shut on Ethan's shoulder. The pain of those teeth sinking in felt far too real, yet Ethan's face never moved. Calm as a dead flat ocean. His stare was colder than the blizzard screaming around him, and a whole lot more frightening than the wind. The monster froze, stunned, locked in place. That was all Ethan needed. He balled his right fist and hammered it down on the spine of the rusty cleaver. The blade was dull as a brick, but that punch drove it deeper, straight through flesh. The creature jerked back in agony, its maw springing open on instinct. Ethan ripped the rusty cleaver loose, and a fountain of blue ichor sprayed from the wound. He hadn't even glanced at his own torn shoulder before a purple glow bloomed above the monster's corpse. The orb of light streaked toward his wristwatch and disappeared inside. When he opened his storage, a new icon sat there, shaped like a USB drive. Frost Warrior Class Change Intel. Quality, purple. Requirement, talent affinity, must be ice-related. Description: near safe zone number 9527 lies a hidden location housing the Frost Warrior Class Change trial. Players of level 10 or higher may attempt it. A special class? Ethan's breathing sped up. Almost nobody ever clawed their way to level 10. Dawnfall Online didn't forgive anything. Leveling was brutal work, and dying cost you half your level. Half. Outside a handful of hardened veterans, nearly every player out there had died at least once. And sure, there were the others, the ones so terrified of dying they ran from every single risk. Any gamer knows what a special class is worth. Strong early gear carries you for a while, then it's junk. A strong class? That rides with you for ages. No question about it, this time, Ethan had hit the jackpot. Time crawled on, and Ethan watched at his leisure as the two Coffin Guild players, swarmed by frost tumor beasts, took hit after hit, faces going white, lips losing every trace of color. They were bleeding out. Every second dragged them closer to the end. Bigwave shook from head to toe, his face twisted with pain and fear. Fear of death curdles fast into hate. Glaring at Ethan with pure poison in his eyes, Bigwave kept spitting the same words: "You're finished. You're going to die." Threats from a dying man. Ethan just smiled, hefted his rusty cleaver, and walked toward the frost tumor beasts. Bigwave's pale face twisted into a mocking sneer. He drawled, "What's the matter, scared?" Scared of making enemies with Coffin Guild and living like a hunted rat? Ethan shook his head, eyes locked on one wounded frost tumor beast up ahead. The Coffin Guild pair had fought hard, no denying it, but every time a beast dropped to its last breath, Ethan slid in and took the kill. Counting the first one that coughed up the purple quality intel, that made 3 monsters down. Big Wave and his partner were running on fumes, nothing left in the tank. Ethan figured he'd take one more beast off the board. After that, he could clean up the stragglers himself, nice and slow. His enemies did all the sweating and bleeding. Ethan snatched the kills and swallowed every scrap of XP. He couldn't help but sigh. Shame. You were doing so well. A little longer and you might have pulled it off. Ethan's words hit their mark. Big Wave's pale face went scarlet, he was furious. He and his partner had clawed through a life-or-death brawl just to keep breathing, while Ethan stood back and swooped in for the killing blows. And now this guy had the nerve to sneer at how weak they were. Humiliating. Plain and simple. Scraping together the last of his strength, Big Wave flung his rusty cleaver straight at Ethan. But Ethan was no fool, he'd never dropped his guard for a second. The cleaver clanged uselessly to the ground at his feet. With a lazy flick of the wrist, Ethan finished off another frost tumor beast. Then he bent down, scooped up the discarded rusty cleaver, and flashed Big Wave a grin. Is this a gift? Thanks, this is exactly the kind of weapon I've been hunting for. Big Wave's whole body convulsed. He jabbed a shaking finger at Ethan and choked out. You wait. Then blood spilled from his mouth, and he crumpled, dead. His partner didn't fare any better. Boxed in by the last of the frost tumor beasts, he was ripped apart in seconds. What remained on the battlefield? Ethan, and 3 wounded frost tumor beasts. He wasn't about to waste a gift like that. He needed levels fast, because he could feel the storm gathering. Big Wave would absolutely spread the word about that purple quality intel reward. If Coffin Guild really had hundreds of members, they could choke off every main road out of Safe Zone 9527 whenever they pleased. For all he knew, they were already on the move. Sure, he could duck back inside the safe zone, find some deep-pocketed buyer, and sell the intel, wipe out his debts, cover the medical bills piling up ahead. But then he'd be stuck behind those walls forever, glancing over his shoulder for Coffin Guild every single day. So Ethan made his choice, strike first. Tear Coffin Guild apart himself. To anyone else, that would sound insane, a player fresh off his first login declaring war on a 300-man guild. Ethan looked at the 10,000-fold intelligence reward on his character sheet and pulled in a slow, deep breath. For anybody else, impossible. For him? Just a matter of time. 10,000-fold intelligence reward, that was his ace in the hole. 3 minutes later, all 3 wounded frost tumor beasts were dead. Ethan worked fast, partly to stay ahead of any new monsters wandering in, partly because the injured beasts were already half-broken. And while cleaning up the battlefield, he found something unexpected on Big Wave's corpse. Blood-soaked bandage. Quality, white. Use requirement, minor bleeding wounds. Effect, stops bleeding and restores 10% HP over time. Description, you really don't want to know whether the blood on this bandage carries anything infectious, use at your own risk. In Dawnfall Online, when a player dies, every ordinary weapon and piece of gear they've equipped drops. And if luck's against you, the items and materials tucked away in your wristwatch storage can spill out too. That's exactly why the Coffin Guild pair didn't jump Ethan right away, they were trying to scare him off and keep their own loot safe. Still, staring at the blood-soaked bandage in his palm, Ethan frowned a little. It was that description nagging at him. The thing did look less than hygienic. But if he couldn't shake the bleeding status, there'd be no more killing, no more leveling. So he didn't overthink it. Ethan used the blood-soaked bandage. Almost instantly the bleeding status vanished, and his HP started ticking slowly back up. Having gotten a taste for looting bodies, Ethan carefully rifled through the second player's corpse, and sure enough, another usable item turned up. Torn sneakers. Quality, white. Use requirement, none. Equip effect, increases wearer's speed by 1. Description, pray the previous owner didn't have athlete's foot. You've got to admit, weapon and item descriptions in Dawnfall Online are a little unhinged. That's part of the game's charm. The only thing separating white quality gear from gray is whether it carries an equip effect or an item effect at all. In Dawnfall Online, monsters drop plenty of odds and ends, but actual equipable gear? So rare that players never stop complaining about it online. From what Ethan had picked up, these torn sneakers, a clean +1 speed, would go for a couple hundred yuan if you sold them safely inside the zone. Which meant those two Coffin Guild players walked away with nothing at all, and ate the death penalty on top of it. A brutal loss. Ethan could already picture the screaming that would start the second they respawned. Safe Zone 9527, a sprawling plaza where towering white stone pillars sat half swallowed by snow, their shapes barely readable through the drifts. This was the zone's respawn point, mockingly nicknamed the Noob Nest. Then one of the pillars flared with a beam of pure white light, and inside it, a human shape slowly pulled itself together. Bigwave's eyes snapped open, fear still swimming in them, his whole body shaking. On instinct, he patted himself down, head to toe. Only once it sank in that he was actually alive again did he let out a ragged breath, standing there dazed, trying to drag his nerves back into place. That's exactly why players call this spot the Noob Nest. Death in Dawnfall Online feels so terrifyingly real it can genuinely break you. It took a solid 20 minutes before Bigwave could string a thought together. He clenched his fists, ground his teeth, opened his mouth to talk revenge, and froze all over again. He had no idea what the ID was of the player who just walked off with that purple quality intel reward. Because he hadn't landed the killing blow himself, the guy's ID never showed up at all. Luckily, a few details had stuck: roughly 1.8 meters, lean build, cold eyes, a face you don't forget. Before long, a handful of players in shredded, filthy clothing, looking more like street drifters than adventurers, came hurrying toward the respawn point, pulling envious stares from everyone standing around. Someone in the crowd murmured, "Hey, look at that guy's got to be a Coffin Guild veteran. His ID's Daydreamer, and word is he's already hit level 10. Seriously? Every piece he's wearing is white quality at minimum, and I swear I saw a green quality dagger on his belt." A green dagger? Put that up for sale and you'd clear 10,000 yuan easy. Thinking of buying gear? Let me stop you right there. It's the early days of Dawnfall Online, basically nobody sells gear or items, unless the stats beat what they're already running. Soaking in every word, Daydreamer let a satisfied smirk creep across his face. Back in the real world, those rags would have had people pegging him as a homeless drifter. Here, in Dawnfall Online's opening days, a full white quality set was a rare badge of power and status. When Daydreamer finally reached Bigwave, he drew a slow breath, smoothed his expression flat, and asked in a low voice, "Bigwave, are you absolutely certain? The most basic frost tumor beast actually dropped a purple quality intel?" Bigwave nodded hard. "Boss, I swear on my life, I didn't misread it. Maybe that player's luck stat was through the roof, but it was a purple quality intel reward, no question." At Bigwave's certainty, Daydreamer couldn't help licking his lips. Since Dawnfall Online went live, not one player had ever pulled a purple quality intel drop. Blue quality alone sold for a jaw-dropping 100,000 yuan. Purple? Purple was worth far more. Whatever it took, that purple intel was going to be theirs. Daydreamer pulled in a slow breath, his gaze dragging across the other Coffin Guild members. His voice dropped, heavy and flat. "Keep this shut. Not a word leaves this room. Once that purple quality intel is ours and the guild grows teeth, every one of you eats well. Clear?" The Coffin Guild members answered as one, "Clear." Daydreamer went on. "Post teams on every exit near the safe zone. Anyone who tries to walk out gets checked. Bigwave, get a sketch made of that player's face. Fast. We don't have time to waste." Bigwave hesitated. "Boss, won't that set the other players off?" Daydreamer's eyes turned to ice. "Let them scream. The second he steps outside the safe zone, we kill him. A chance like this doesn't knock twice. We take it. Round up a few high levels and follow me. We're going to Frostspire Tower." Frostspire Tower, the exact spot where Bigwave had died. Daydreamer, careful as always, suspected the player who'd landed that purple quality intel was too sharp to run straight back to safe zone 9527. Not long after, Daydreamer marched out at the head of a dozen Coffin Guild members, a whole procession moving toward Frostspire Tower. And somewhere in that column, one member quietly flipped open his wristwatch and fired off a message. Within minutes, the other guilds inside safe zone 9527 had the news and started pulling their players together. All over one purple quality intel drop, safe zone 9527 was suddenly boiling, restless, hungry, waiting. Meanwhile, Ethan, the man who'd actually won that purple quality intel, was on the first floor of Frostspire Tower, putting down the last Frost Tumor beast. Since hitting level 1, he'd killed 10 of them. One thing set Dawnfall Online apart from every other game: no experience notifications. It never told you what you'd killed or how much XP you'd earned. Whether you'd leveled up, you learned from your wristwatch and from the quiet changes in your own body. Only after the 10th Frost Tumor beast dropped did Ethan feel that faint shift inside him. He opened his wristwatch and pulled up his character sheet. Name: Windchaser. Talents: Pain Resistance, Blue, 10,000-fold Intelligence Reward, Unknown. Level: LV2. Class: None. Status: Normal. Equipment: Cotton underwear, gray, rusty cleaver, gray, tattered down jacket, gray, torn sneakers, white. HP: 89%. Strength: 8. Speed: 10, +1 from equipment. Defense: 4. Energy: 9. Charisma: 10. Luck: 1. Attribute points: 1. Storage: Frost Warrior Class Change Intel, purple. His speed was already getting a boost from the torn sneakers, so there was no rush to dump the point there. His defense, though, was low, maybe the illness, but he passed on that too. If he wanted power fast, he needed to kill faster. Everything came down to efficiency. After a moment's thought, Ethan dropped his attribute point into strength. The moment it kicked in, he felt a warm current pour out of his wristwatch and flood through his body. He clenched his fist, swung the rusty cleaver through the air. No doubt about it, his raw muscle power had gone up. Dawnfall Online really was something else. It appeared out of nowhere, right there in everyone's field of vision, and yet it felt more solid and real than anything. And now a question started nagging at him: where had Dawnfall Online actually come from, and what did it really mean? Ethan turned it over for a second, then shook his head. He had less than a year left to live. Whatever the truth behind Dawnfall Online was, it probably didn't concern him one bit. What mattered right now was simple: find a new type of monster, kill it, grab fresh intel rewards, and see how fast he could push his strength up before the threat hanging over him arrived. A short search later, Ethan found the tower's stairwell and started making his way down toward the basement level. The upper floors of Frostspire Tower were sealed tight. Players online had been guessing they simply hadn't unlocked yet, that they'd open up with time. So down was the only direction left. Basement level 1 should be crawling with something other than Frost Tumor beasts. As his figure disappeared outside the tower, Coffin Guild's Daydreamer showed up with more than a dozen members at his back. Daydreamer snapped out a quick order, leaving 4 level 7 players posted at the entrance. Nobody was slipping out. Then he led 8 level 8 players straight toward the tower doors. And right then, a grating voice cut through the cold. "What a coincidence, Daydreamer, never expected to run into you here. A level 10 player in a rookie map like Frostspire Tower? What exactly are you doing?" Daydreamer's eyes turned to ice. He swept his gaze across his own ranks, studying every face, until one man's eyes flicked away, guilty. In a heartbeat, Daydreamer stepped forward, drew his green quality dagger, and drove it into the man's throat with one ruthless thrust. While the informant gurgled and clawed at his own neck, Daydreamer calmly wiped the blade clean, then turned to face the man who'd spoken. A mocking smile spread across his face. "Flying Fish, you're level 10 too, aren't you? What, came for the scenery?" Flying Fish frowned at the corpse on the ground, caught off guard by how casually, how efficiently Daydreamer had done it. He didn't bother with pleasantries. "That purple quality intel isn't going to your Coffin Guild. My boss will hunt that player down and offer him a price he can't turn down." Daydreamer's grin stretched wider, dripping with malice. Relax. I'll have that purple intel long before you do. This is a game, not the real world. You want something? You take it. With that, Daydreamer waved a hand and marched the remaining 7 Coffin Guild members straight into Frostspire Tower.